Welcome back, friends. Lost Guy here. Time for more Greatest Attorney Voice LP. So I got the voices, so let's do this thing. Hey, Lady Cain, Governor of Barclay Prison. Everyone calls me Gossip. I sell jaunty little tidbits to passerbys by you. Your other persona, if you don't mind? Oh, I do beg your pardon. Of course. My name is Daily Vigil. I used to be the chief warder at Barclay Prison. The reason you've been summoned here to court today is to testify about the jailbreak of the so-called professor 10 years ago. What? The professor? You've already been through all of this before a decade ago. And the conclusion was that there was nothing untoward that happened. A convict escaped from your prison, Governor. Hardly what you'd call nothing untoward. Well... The convict's death certificate was somehow falsified after he was allegedly executed. And he escaped the prison inside his own coffin. A plan of that complexity could never have been carried out without the help of somebody of influence inside the prison. Governor Caden, don't imagine that the passage of time will afford you any protection. If it turns out that you were involved in the plot to break Mr. Asogi out of your prison, then of course, the consequences will be very serious. In all likelihood, a capital punishment. Yads! Hold on there, laddie. All I did was... Is that what it? All I did was... Yeah. Witness, Governor Kaiden. Aye, sir. You have a critical role to play in the public safety of our country. A great responsibility to shoulder. The significance of your testimony in court cannot be understated. Therefore, think carefully before you speak. And Prosecutor Asogi, if you threaten the witness again, you'll be held in contempt of court. My apologies, my lord. There's no disputing the fact that any intricate jailbreak plot was enacted 10 years ago. There's no disputing the fact that an intricate jailbreak plot was enacted 10 years ago. Clearly, you were both involved in some way. So you will testify before the court now and explain exactly what took place. Very well. Let the witnesses give their formal testimony. Tell the court everything you know of the plot to break Asogi out of Barclay 10 years ago. There we go, witness testimony. 1 second here. The jailbreak plot. It was the day the Japanese jock was found guilty. The directive came from the prosecutor's office. I assigned the convict to the chief warder vigil here, and put the plan into action behind the scenes. I was responsible for Asogi right up until the night of his execution. But I knew nothing of any plot. I didn't care if there was some negotiation between the convict and the prosecutor's office. All I did was carry out my duty by Her Majesty's Great British Empire. That's it? Alright. A doctor from the prosecutor's office? Are you saying that was the jailbreak plot? Hey, that's right. Who sent it? Who authorized that plan? I didn't ken that. You're saying you don't know? Listen, there was nothing about that professor case that was nae unusual in some way. I didn't ask any questions, I just did what I was told to do. Other than that, I couldn't tell you. I see. But if the jailbreak plan originated from the prosecutor's office, then one thing is very clear. As suspected, there were clandestine dealings going on between Mr. Asogi and that office. The jailbreak was promised in exchange for Mr. Asogi admitting to crimes he didn't commit. That, counsel, is nothing more than speculation on your part. So, let me ask the defense. Oh, yes, my lord? I fail to see how these witnesses have any more pertinent information here. Do you intend to assert your right to a cross-examination? Absolutely! I have no intention of squandering a single opportunity, my lord. It seems all you Japanese are fiercely tenacious. Very well. Proceed, counsel. Okay. Hold it! And you say you don't know who actually issued the directive? Hey, that's right. All I can be sure of is that it was official. But if it was from the prosecutor's office, that narrows down who could have issued it straight away. And it wasn't me. I can't even say with certainty that I did originate from the prosecutor's office. What? There's no telling where it started. There's a fair chance it came from higher up the ladder. Basically, I cannot give you an indication of who was behind it. You can't be serious. All we can say for sure is that the order must have come from somebody in authority, I suppose. The likes of us on the ground, as it were, didn't bother with the speculation. We just get the job done. Hold it! So, Mr. Vigil, you didn't know anything about it at all? That's right. My only role in the scheme was as a scapegoat. That's right, isn't it, Governor? Some poor beggar had to take that up for it. Alright then, who else did know about the plan? I've no the first idea, laddie. My part in the whole business is basically just dealing with the aftermath. I wouldn't be surprised if there were other folk in the prison service who've been given similar orders. So you don't know who else was involved? Aye, that's right. All I can tell you is that the night it actually happened, the person at the reins was Dr. Stevens. Dr. Courtney Stevens, or Dr. Syed as she's known now. Why did I have to get caught up in such a terrible business? Hold it! Did you not notice anything unusual happening in the lead-up to that night? Oh, everything was unusual, exception after exception. After all, it was the professor. The man had terrorized the country as never before with his crimes. In order to hide his identity, he was forced to wear an iron mask over his head. Hideous treatment. The fellow was surprisingly docile for someone who'd taken the lives of 5 of the country's nobles. Being the chief warder, I was the only person permitted to approach his cell. I can still hardly believe that I was duped by my own country. I believe you jumped from the window of the governor's office when the jailbreak was blamed on you, didn't you? Ugh. Losh, Vigil, I cannot apologize enough. No, Governor, I don't believe you can. It won't change what's happened. Ugh. And what else can you tell us about the situation, Governor Kaiden? But you've already acknowledged that orders came from the prosecutor's office to arrange for the man's escape. There must have been some sort of negotiation. That's the only explanation. Nay, well, be that as it may, I didn't know nothing about it. Living this stand is no place for telling what you don't know for sure. I can, that much I do. Then I presume you also know this. Not telling what you do know is a criminal offense. Yeah. So you were just following orders, is that it? I'm afraid that won't absolve you of the guilt here. A man was still killed illegally, even if he was a condemned criminal. You may very well be found complicit in murder, Governor. Yeah. But that's what it's to be, is it? Even with the threat of conviction, you won't break your silence. Yeah. Hold it! Did you carry out the plan in its entirety? I did everything I could at the time. As you know, Genshin Asogi was shot dead in Lowgate Cemetery after the escape. Tell me, was that part of the plan too? My instructions were to do with getting the jock out of the jail and nothing more. I cannot tell you anything about what happened after that. Only, personally, I do believe his death was the last part of the plan. Yeah, we'll go back to that in a minute. What? Aye, it were wrongdo, no doubt about it. But you have to mind, there were special circumstances. It was to protect the British justice system. That's just how the execution had to happen, I think. You're saying that Mr. Asogi's murder in Lowgate Cemetery was a capital punishment? Was his capital? Okay, read that again. You're saying that Mr. Asogi's murder in Lowgate Cemetery was his capital punishment? You realize Mr. Vigil tried to make it... You realize Mr. Vigil tried to take his own life as a result? Aye, well, that's another story. Who was it? Who shot my father in the cemetery that night? I have no answer to that question. However it happened, the convict's life was destined to end that night. The moment the execution order was signed, his fate was sealed. This court will not pursue the identity of the individual who carried out the order. So Asogi-san agreed to confess the crimes because he was assured he'd be broken out of prison later. I really don't think that Kazuma-sama's father would have engaged in such negotiations. Then perhaps something compelled him to agree? What a terrible thing. Using the law to legitimize such underhanded dealings with a desperate man. Only to double-cross him in the end. It's quite the opposite of justice. I can't help feeling there's something about this apparent negotiation that doesn't quite add up. Something doesn't quite add up, Mr. Naruhodo. No, it doesn't, but I can't quite put my finger on what yet. Well, in that case, we must keep digging until we identify the problem. Okay, so go back to the fifth one. Hold it! Cycle through until we get to the thing. What does this all mean? Excuse me! Mr. Vigil, is something wrong? Yes, sir? What can I do for you, sir? He's saluting now. What is it, some sort of Barclay convention? What Governor Kidden was just saying seemed to upset you. Did it bring something to mind, perhaps? For the last 10 years, I've completely blotted out the memories of that time from my mind. I was betrayed by my superiors in the name of my country. Just as my father was betrayed, it seems. But you see, thinking back now, I really can't imagine that the shooting of Mr. Asogi in the cemetery was ever part of the plan. What makes you think that? Well, it just doesn't make sense, does it? To make the man admit to crimes he didn't commit with the promise of a jailbreak, only to kill him in the end? That's treachery of the worst kind. But the point is, if the intention was always to betray him, why would there be any need for all the chicaneries of an escape? Could have just hanged him. Huh? Yes, that's quite true. If whoever negotiated with Asogi never intended to keep his or her end of the bargain, it would have been far simpler just to let the man be executed in prison as dictated by his sentence. It all happened in that vast chamber of secrets that is Barclay, behind the high prison walls. I suppose nobody knows what really went on in the execution room now. Yes, it's an unsettling mystery, certainly. Truth be told, there's a wee matter that's never quite made sense to me. Huh? If you believe there was some kind of negotiation behind the jailbreak between Asogi and the body at the top, it doesn't quite add up, does it? Governor Caden, I must insist that you explain these doubts that you have. By amending your formal testimony. Gads, hey, go on then. Oh. It seems to me that the Japanese fella didn't have nothing to bargain with. Yeah? Hold it! Admitting to the crimes, that was what he had to bargain with, surely. I couldn't see that myself. After all, did the prosecution now have conclusive evidence against the Carly? What? After all, did the prosecution now have conclusive evidence against the Carly, eh? This, you mean, discovered during the final victim's autopsy? There's every possibility this conclusive evidence was fabricated by Scotland Yard in the prosecutor's office. Objection! Possibilities are all very well, but nothing has been proven. You can holler about misconduct in the trial 10 years ago all you like. But if you can't establish that it had happened without evidence, no one's going to listen. Aye, that's right. What I'm saying is, the convict had nothing he could use for any kind of bargaining at all. The witness makes an astute point. Logically, it would seem no negotiation could have taken place. And yet the plan to break the man out of prison was definitely put into practice. So he must have been armed with something that gave him an angle to negotiate. What did he have? I assume the Asogi paper's here, so let's go ahead and save. Come see. Really assuming Asogi paper's here. Objection! Yep, Asogi papers. Confessing under oath to murders he didn't commit on a verbal assurance of later being broken out of prison. Genshin Asogi was taking an incredibly risky gamble. Very true. There was nothing to stop the British breaking their word and executing him behind closed doors anyway. Under normal circumstances, no man would stake his life on a gentleman's agreement like that. Which means that Mr. Asogi must have had a trump card. Something that guaranteed he wouldn't be betrayed. Some kind of weapon! Avas, the fella couldn't possibly have had anything like that. But you know that he did, Governor. The Asogi Papers, the name given to the last will and testament of Genshin Asogi. Ah! It turns out that Mr. Asogi was hiding his will in his cell at Barclay. Chief Warder Vigil caught him with it one day. You squealed, did you? You weird rat! Did I not tell you to keep that a secret? You can't touch me now. Ah! When Mr. Vigil caught sight of that will through the bars of the convict cell, Mr. Sogi pleaded with the warder. Alright then. But what's on that paper? A last will and testament. This will is the only weapon I have left now. A weapon? And after the convict had been killed following the elaborate pretense of the jailbreak, that document mysteriously disappeared, didn't it? Well, yes. All the prison warders searched through the belongings in his cell, but that will was just nowhere to be found. As I understand it, an exhaustive search was made for the document, which became known as the Asogi Papers. Governor Kaiden, I believe you ordered your prison staff to find it at all costs, didn't you? Eh? Would I be right in saying that you knew? You knew that the so-called Asogi Papers had the potential to make great waves somehow? Jings! What the blazes are you blathering about? The will was found right and proper. In the fellow's cell where I said it would be. But how can that be? We're in his cell. We all searched the place from top to bottom. Well, you didn't do a proper job, eh? You peely, wally galoot. You can't criticize me now. I showed it to you before, didn't I? You liar. Yes, you did. I have the document here. It's written in Japanese and reads, The Last One Testament of Genjin Asogi. Which means everything is as it should be. Not quite, my lord. You see, there's an undeniable inconsistency here. What? What inconsistency? Mr. Sogi described this document as the only weapon he had left. And yet this will contains nothing of significance at all. Nothing that would have given the convict any leverage. Are you suggesting, my learned friend, that the Last One Testament stored at Barclay Prison all these years is actually a fake? As has clearly been demonstrated already, what went on at Barclay Prison was far from above board. They're both shocked. That last vilification by the defense was an affront to the entire British legal system. This absurd notion of a weapon is something for which we have only the former Chief Warder's words. The man could quite easily be lying, or at the very least, sorely mistaken. What? No! I definitely heard him say that, I swear. Clearly, we need to get to the bottom of this. We need to know exactly what happened with these so-called Asogi Papers. A waste of time. If the will was fake, where's the real document?
Objection!
Mr. Vigil was stabbed in the back by the judiciary 10 years ago. He lost everything, very nearly his own life. Oh my god. And now you're going to do it again? You're ready to brand him a liar and turn your back on him without even letting him defend himself? It's clear that Barclay Prison is hiding something. It's clear that the jailbreak was masterminded by somebody at the prosecution's office. It's clear that someone listed a negotiation took place. Is your lordship just going to gloss over these obvious and something facts? Obvious and reprehensible facts? What did you say? You should hear more from the Chief Warder. Have him testify again. The trial must go on. The man's voice must be heard. It would seem that a vocal few here are utterly blind to the truth. Very well, then. Let the witness testify again. Tell the court precisely what you think you saw of the convict's last will and testament. Yes, sir, my lord. What's this testimony? The Asogi Papers. As the warder responsible for condemned convicts, I attended to Mr. Asogi. I kept watch over his cell. The night after he was found guilty in court, he was doing something with that will in his cell. We turned the cell inside out looking for it after the execution, but to no avail. I only found out about the Asogi papers when a directive came telling me to impound them. The document was in the folds of the fella's robe. That was left in his cell. A kimono, I think it's called. In his kimono? That's a lie. We searched every inch of the man's cell. We looked through all his clothes. It can't be true. Were you no satisfied with calling me a liar the once, eh? Yeah, were you offend ya? Huh, there's nothing you can do about it now. You don't have any hold over me anymore. Other than the hold you like to take at my cravats, of course. Is that what you're going to do, is it? Are you going to give me a good shake again? Or are you too scared? Oh my god, it's shaking. Yeah! Oh my god! Having the animation separate from him doing it is hilarious. Little and large, what a double act. We complied with Asogi's will as far as was possible. All of his personal effects were delivered to his family home in Japan, as a courtesy to the homeland of the most notorious killer our country has ever seen. That wasn't Jack the Ripper? And we were much obliged. I can confirm that all of my father's belongings arrived safely, except the ring. Aye, and you cannot deny the handwriting is that of your old man, eh? Yes, there's no mistaking that it's my father's brushwork. Really? And this last will and testament was the man's last weapon, was it? I think we can safely assume that the convict was merely prattling, knowing that his end was nigh. So, counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, please. Slap. Yes, my lord. Oh, my back's really bugging me. Oh, jeez. Here we go, the Asogi papers. Hold it! So would that mean that you conversed with Mr. Asogi? Yes, certainly. Though there was precious little time before his execution was due. He was remarkably calm, considering his days were very much numbered. In all honesty, he really didn't strike one as a man capable of mass murder. Yet he confessed in full to the crimes. I know, that's why I felt compelled to ask him one day. I can still recall his reply. I'm guilty of the unforgivable crime of ending another human's life, yes. But he was so tranquil and intelligent, it put me in mind of an Eastern holy man. And what about the will you saw him with? What can you tell us about it? It was the beginning of all the drama. I remember it very well, yes. That weak slap every time is so ridiculous. Hold it! And he pleaded with you not to report him, didn't he? Yes, that's right. You're like the bum pot. Yeah, you didn't tell me. A blatant breach of trust that was. I could see that the man had a noble spirit. I found myself wanting to treat him accordingly. But according to what you told us 2 days ago, the convict had been strictly forbidden from having any writing materials whatsoever. Yes, you're quite right. Ah, so when exactly was the will penned? That was before the man was remanded in Berkeley, obviously. Yes, at the prosecutor's office under supervision of the relevant authorities. I personally instructed Asogi to make a will for the benefit of his family and his homeland. In that case, why was it found in his cell? What do you mean by that? Well, if it was penned at the prosecutor's office, would you have expected that it would remain there for safekeeping, surely? It's curious. There doesn't seem to be any obvious explanation for why it was subsequently found in the convict's cell. Well... The defense makes an astute point. Well, Governor? The present governor cannot be expected to ken the inner workings of the prosecutor's office. In that case, Lord Strongheart, perhaps you can shed some light on the matter? I'm unable to offer an explanation here and now. Huh? I would have to consult with the notary responsible for the will at the time. Rabble, 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 rabble. The fact that my father's will was discovered in his cell is clearly inconsistent with what was expected. I want to know why. Another inexplicable mystery, then. Well, the thing is about that will... Hold it! It was the governor who ordered the search for the will, as I understand it, is that right? Yes, and when I reported back that we couldn't find it, he grabbed me by the cravat and yelled, "It cannot have disappeared completely," in my face. Hey, well, it's down to the governor to keep everybody working as hard as they should. I think governor needs a wee taste of his own medicine, Mr. Nadahoda. The point is, it was clearly considered a very important document, wasn't it? But it proved impossible to find. That's right. Then before I knew it, it was in the morning paper. That blood-curdling article. The executed mass murderer who'd risen from the dead. Oh, you mean... The article based on Mr. Trevor's experience in the Lowgate Cemetery. Yes, that was it. The day after I'd read that news, I was summoned to the governor's office. And that's when the awful accusation was made. That you aided Genshin Asogi to escape from the prison, resulting in your immediate dismissal. I'm afraid I really don't remember anything after that. As the governor of the prison, I had no choice. I couldn't have done anything else. Hold it! So, and that directive came from the same source as the one instructing you about the jailbreak? Hey, from the top levels of the prosecutor's office. What name was on it? I didn't ken before, and I didn't ken now. All I can tell you is that my orders were to do everything in my power to find that document. The directive said it had to be somewhere inside the fella's cell. Document? Was that the wording? Document, not will? Hey, that's what it said. Am I clutching at straws here? I just wonder if it was really Genshin Asogi's last will and testament that the sender of that directive was after. Continue with your testimony then, witness. Hold it! In Mr. Asogi's kimono? Hey, the one he'd brought with him when he was locked up. Yes, he was permitted to have his personal effects with him during his reincarnation. Yes, he was permitted to have his personal effects with him during his incarceration, I understand. That's right. He was granted as much freedom as possible during the few days before his execution. Indeed. He had a number of items of personal significance, I remember. He was very reluctant to part with them. Some books, that kimono, his sword. His sword? Karuma, the famous sword of the Asogi clan. It bears the soul of my family. I doubt it. I don't doubt it, but I wasn't really getting at that. Forget it being the soul of the clan. Could that man have had a more obvious weapon? Have some respect, Ryunosuke. Respectful silence? The warders carry firearms at all times, and the inmates have shackles around their ankles. He couldn't have hurt anybody with that thing. Still, he was allowed a sword, but no writing material? Aye. He wrote that well before he came to stay with us at Barclay, you see. Dr. Mikitoba was asked to bring the necessary Japanese writing implements to the prosecutor's office. A Suzuri inkstone, black sumi ink, and some Hanshi rice paper, no doubt. I was present when he wrote it. But I'm sorry to say, the letters just looked like a squirming mass of jet black earthworms to me. Oh my god, him again. My father had a passion for calligraphy. He found the profound black color of sumi ink to be very soothing. I'm sure that cursive Japanese script must look utterly incomprehensible to English eyes. Anyhow, that's the document that was found in the fellow's kimono. Despite the seriousness of his crimes, he was treated in a gentlemanly fashion until the end. When he was callously betrayed and shot dead in a dark cemetery in the middle of the night. Yes, the gentlemanliness of it all is overwhelming. That testimony doesn't give much away. So this will really was penned by Kazuma-sama's father? I wonder what he could possibly have meant when he described it as a weapon. It's starting to sound very much like Mr. Asogi actually had nothing. But the plan to break him out of jail went ahead, which means he must have had some bargaining power. He must have been hiding something. It's the only explanation that makes sense. It's starting to sound like Mr. Asogi actually might have had something. Oh my god. Which is it, Mr. Naruhodo? I'm not sure, but I feel as though I'm on the brink of understanding all of this. Let's listen to all the information again and see what more we can learn. We can't overlook even the smallest detail. Absolutely.
Hold it!
Wait for it. Get back to my chair.
Is that right? Excuse me.
Here we go. Are you feeling faint, Mr. Vigil? Mr. Vigil! Sir? It was Scarlet, sir. Huh? What? Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't mean to blurt it out like that. Oh. Less swaying and more explaining, would you be helpful? It is? Is it something about the testimony we just heard? Have you recalled something of importance? Oh, something of importance? Possibly, or possibly not. I'm unable to tell which way he's leaning, I'm afraid. My lord, the defense asked that Mr. Vigil be permitted to supplement his testimony. With this, possibly or possibly not important detail. Permission granted. Go ahead, Mr. Vigil. Yes, it was Scarlet. As I remember, the document was written in scarlet ink, but perhaps I'm mistaken. Press.
Hold it!
Scarlet, you say? A scarlet, you say? Well, yes. I mean, I only caught sight of it for a brief moment, of course. But even by the dim light in the cell, I remember thinking that it was an unusual color. At the very least, I'm quite sure it wasn't black.
Witness! Is that really what you saw?
Huh? What? Sir? Is something wrong, Lord Strongheart?
I apologize. Continue.
What do you make of that, Mr. Naruto? Will Lord Strongheart be so visibly shaken in that way? Oh, you can plainly see the light in here. And it's as black as the Earl of Hell's waistcoat. Well, yes, you're right. Mr. Vigil, I'd like to confirm one point with you. Did you actually see the content of the document that Mr. Asogi was holding that night? Oh, well, no. I mean, there was no time. As soon as he noticed me there, he hid it behind his back. But it was definitely a will, was it? Yes, it was. That's what Mr. Asogi told me.
The court need waste no further time on this matter. We have the will in question in our possession. There's nothing more to add.
A will written in scarlet ink. Blood. What did Mr. Vigils really see Cosmo's father holding, I wonder? If you have an inkling, Miss Naruto, you must present it to the court at once. No inkling! Right here, in the autopsy. Recent scarlet ink stains visible on the little and ring fingers of the right hand, but no document in corresponding ink was found.
It's something written by Clint! That's why! It's something Clint wrote! Oh my god!
It's not something Asogi wrote, it's something Clint wrote. Ooh, that's his final weapon. Present it. Scarlet-colored writing is what you said you thought you saw, Mr. Vigil? And I believe that's exactly what you did see. What?
Try this again! You have no evidence to say that.
Have a look at this report. That's my brother's autopsy report. Yes, and there's something in here that's bothered me since I first read it. It states that scarlet-colored ink stains were found on the fingers of the victim's right hand. Yes, so it does. Scarlet ink? Now, I'm not familiar with the habits of the British aristocracy, I freely admit. But I would hazard a guess that they don't all go around with ink stains on their fingertips, do they? Your wit is not appreciated. My brother was a well-bred and fastidious man. Should ink have sullied his fingertips, he would have cleaned them immediately.
What is your point, Counsel?
My point is this. Whatever Lord Clint von Zeeks was writing in that unusually colored ink, it must have been directly before his death. Because he died before he had the opportunity to clean his hand.
What?
I remember something troubled me at the time. At the scene, the lid of my brother's inkwell was open. But Clint was punctilious about such things. It seemed unusual. And no document penned in the color of the ink that was within that inkwell was ever found. But the document had disappeared. Are you suggesting that the document my father had in his hand that night when in his cell was the same document that Lord Clint von Zeeks was writing moments before his death? Then it was... If Mr. Vigil's testimony is to be believed, it can only mean that, yes. Mr. Vigil. Sir? when you spotted Mr. Silk with the document in his cell, his precise words were as follows, were they not? Alright then, but what's with that paper? Our last will and testament. This will is the only weapon I have left now. It wasn't his will and testament. A last will and testament. If the conversation really did go as Mr. Vigil says, then what we know now completely changes the meaning of what Mr. Asogi said. You really think? Mr. Vigil did indeed see the convict with a will, but it wasn't that of Genshin Asogi. It was the last will and testament of Lord Clint von Zeeks! No. What?
Objection!
This is madness. My brother's last will and testament? That would mean that he had chosen to die. That is what it would mean, yes. No, impossible. That is utterly out of the question. Lord von Zeeks. Clint was pursuing the professor, consumed him day and night. Whatever happened, he would never have abandoned his investigation before its conclusion, never. He wouldn't rest until the job was done, until the killer was caught. The idea that he would willingly accept his own death is obscene.
Objection!
And yet, we can be sure that he was writing his will moments before his death. And that Genshin Asogi came to be in possession of that document. So what could the will possibly have contained? Clearly something that couldn't be made public under any circumstances whatsoever. Because armed with that document, my father was able to negotiate with the judiciary for his life. It was something so damning that it prompted the powers that be to enact that daring jailbreak plot. Yes, there can be no question that the will contained information of the utmost secrecy. Information of the utmost secrecy? No, it can't be. It's who the professor was. I've heard more than enough. Pursuing this notion of a phantom will nobody can attest to having seen serves absolutely no purpose.
Objection!
No, my lord, that's unacceptable. What did you say, counsel? The last will and testament that Genshin Asogi had in his possession was that of Lord Clint von Zeeks. All the testimony and evidence presented to the court has logically led us to that as a possibility. We have a duty to pursue the line of reasoning to its conclusion. But with no possible means of knowing the contents of the document, there's no line of reasoning to pursue. A reason why Lord Clint von Zeeks, a man of high noble standing, would have chosen death. Information so secret, people in the judiciary would be willing to negotiate the jailbreak of a condemned killer. The only explanation that fits these facts is an unthinkable truth that turns absolutely everything on its head. But it's just too hideous. Mr. Naruhodo. However difficult the situation might become, you work with your client in pursuit of the truth. That's what you resolved to do when you entered the courtroom this morning, if I'm not mistaken. Mrs. Sato. So hold your head high and keep soldiering on. Yes, you're right. 10 years ago in his final moments, Lord Clint von Zeeks left behind a will. A will that Genshin Asogi was able to use as a weapon to negotiate his escape from prison. In all probability, the details in the will were related to the Professor case. The defense's last statement is more conjecture. What are you getting at, man? Ryunosuke? As soon as these words came out of my mouth, there's no going back. As soon as these words come out of my mouth, there's no going back. I believe that the last will and testament of Lord Clint von Zeeks was in fact. It's an accusation or a confession. I assume it's an accusation. An accusation. Obviously, it must have been an accusation. An accusation? Yes, revealing the true identity of the professor. Which would explain why Asugi took it, since it was he who was implicated by the document.
Objection!
No, that's dumb. No, in that case, the will wouldn't have given Mr. Asugi any bargaining power at all. Then you're suggesting the accusation was against someone else?
Objection!
No. If that were the case, the two men would surely have collaborated to pursue the culprit together. Then your whole argument falls down. Ah! Oh, damn. Okay, so it was a confession. Alright, can I object to the penalty, too? It's apparent that the defense's explanation has no real substance. This line of inquiry is dead. Come on, Ryunosuke, I know you. You've seen the heart of all this, haven't you? So it was a confession. So it was a confession? Okay. So Clint was the killer. You can do this, Mr. Naruhodo. I believe that what Lord Clint von Zeeks actually penned that day was a confession. A confession. Regarding the mass murderer known as the Professor. And his true identity.
Objection!
Enough, Counsel. What are you saying? Do you even realize? A confession about the true identity of the Professor? That would mean... Lord von Zeeks, I appreciate this must be hard to take in. But it's the only explanation that fits. The killer that terrorized London a decade ago and became known as the Professor. The man believed to have murdered 5 members of the aristocracy. Wasn't Genshin Asogi at all. No, you can't be suggesting. It was in fact the man believed to have been the 5th victim. Lord Clint von Zeeks himself! Not the best yell, since I gave him such a low voice. It's finally open, is it? Pandora's box. The great von Zeeks family? They've been thoroughbreds of the British judiciary for years. And Lord Clint von Zeeks, he was a paragon of justice in the capital. But he was actually a mass murderer? A perpetrator of atrocities of the vilest nature? If the general public ever found out, law and order in the country would be finished. My brother. Oh, this is too awful. Poor Lord von Zeeks. I wonder, though, did he never suspect? Mr. Naruhodo? Lord Barak von Zeeks is a brilliant prosecutor. Is it conceivable that he didn't realize what his older brother really was? Order in the court. Lord von Zeeks. The Professor made use of an enormous hound as his murder weapon. Tell me, did your brother own a dog? Yes, he did. Balmung, he was a well-known hunting dog. People called him a giant. You never suspected that? I don't believe this. When my brother would go hunting in the forest of the grounds behind the house, he always took Balmung. After Clint's death, the creature passed away too. Almost as if he were following his master. He was a magnificent hunting dog, worthy of the jewel-studded collar around his neck.
A jewel-studded collar?
That's right. Though sadly, some years ago now, it was stolen by a thief who broke into the house one night.
A jewel-studded collar stolen by a thief. It so happens that myself and my colleagues have come across such a collar during our time in London.
How could you?
There was an old emblem attached to the collar that was made of pure gold. Yeah, we saw this. Had blood on it.
It was topped with a small crown and bore an ornate capital letter B.
What?
An emblem bearing the initial B.
Oh my, you know of it?
It's the insignia of the Baskerville family.
What? The Baskerville? Why is that name coming up now? This is why.
Baskerville is the family name of my late brother's widow. That pure gold emblem was an heirloom which Clint acquired upon their marriage. There can be no doubt then. The color you've described was Balmong's. The family insignia of Lord Von Zeke's widow?
There was a considerable amount of blood on the collar when he saw it. Since we know the dog was used for hunting, it could have been from its quarry, of course.
But it could equally have been from human prey.
Huh. So it's true then.
When Von Zeke's really was the professor?
Impossible. These Japanese are making it all up to exonerate their own.
So in fact, the person responsible for these murders of nobles and royals was a noble himself. And that threatened to be an enormous scandal that would irrevocably destabilize British society. My father knew that, and was using it to negotiate his way out of the unjust charges brought against him. But at the very last hour, those he'd bargained with betrayed him, slaying him mercilessly on foreign soil.
Well, can you deny it, Lord Strongheart?
10 years have passed. And still now, the 6 million inhabitants of our great capital rest easy believing that justice was done. That though his anonymity remains, the diabolical murderer was caught and executed. Very well then. You may have the truth.
My god, are we finishing the game right now? I was gonna stop in a second, but I couldn't find a good spot to stop.
Tell me then. Tell me what Clint really was. Lord Clint von Zeeks was too pure of heart. When he became a prosecutor and went in pursuit of the black roots of crime, he drove himself into a corner. He came to the uncomfortable realization that to fight the most fiendish of criminals requires one to become even more fiendish oneself.
His brother was the original Reaper.
Clint.
I feel like we're going to have an hour-long episode to wrap this up. We'll stop here. The big revelation will be next time, so that's it for now. And if I'm wrong, we'll figure it out. But that's it for now. I have fun watching. That's what's all about it. Having fun. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.